Hey guys, I'm Brandon Forshino, and you are tuning into Ordinary Time Catholic Podcast. I'm so grateful you're here. Today, I'm joined with my dear friend Lindsay Aldridge, and we're going to be talking about living liturgically at home. Now, I know the whole theme of Ordinary Time is designed to really help us live in these ordinary moments of ordinary time, but one of the things that we're going to be talking about are all the different liturgical seasons and how we can live liturgically at home outside of ordinary time, during ordinary time. There's all kinds of liturgical things that happen throughout the Catholic year.
Mhm.
And Lindsay inspired me and my family to start living liturgically at home. And I will say that it's totally improved our relationship with God, relationship as a family. And I
Mhm.
just thought, what better guest than to have Lindsay Aldridge, the queen of living liturgically at
Oh,
home.
there's no Queen but Mary. No, no.
That's true. But I will say, outside of what she's inspired my family to do, you actually publish something for your parish,
I do.
which is a newsletter that goes out for all the different liturgical, the feasts, the solemnities.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to get into all of that on today's episode. So, first of all, thank you for being here on Ordinary Time.
No, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, first, why don't you start by just your life as a Catholic, as a mom, as a
Mm-hmm.
wife, how did you even get inspired to this whole living liturgically at home? Because I don't know a lot of Catholics who, really understand what it means to be Catholic, let alone really embrace this beautiful tradition in the house. So
In the
talk a
home
little bit
life.
about your
Mm-hmm.
background and how you got into this.
Sure. This is not something I grew up with. My mom happened upon the Catholic All Year Compendium by Kendra Tierney in the Queen of Angels bookstores, our local Catholic bookstore. And she gave it to me for Christmas 2018. And 2019, everything changed. Once I read through it, I really felt like my identity as a mother completely changed when I discovered this. Like I said, it's not something I grew up with. My mom was a convert, so she didn't grow up in the faith. Um, and so when I started reading through it, it really just clicked for me that while we were already trying to raise our family Christian and children in the Christian way, in the Catholic way, that it really just brought order and really just changed the organization of how I looked at our year. It wasn't just the rush of the holidays anymore. It became about the seasons of the church. And that just changed the entire rhythm of the house. Meatless Fridays every week, our home altar that changes with the seasons, special days for the kids that aren't just their birthdays, which I think is also super important with multiple children in the families to get a little more spotlight on certain kids. And the church has already done the hard work of assigning feast days, assigning seasons, and the themes within them. We just have to follow them. And what happens when we follow Mother Church in general? When we follow the guidelines, we find peace and order and rhythm and virtue, which isn't that exactly what we want for the children and our entire family, our entire household is virtue and attaining heaven together. And the domestic church is what we are at home. It doesn't exist outside the home. It is only in the home. We are the domestic church, and that's not going to happen unless we're making it happen, you know.
Yeah, and you talk about this idea of having seasons. I mean, first of all, the world does such a good job at forcing us into the Hallmark holidays
Trying
and
to take over.
right?
Yes.
And so, of course, it's funny. I was talking to my sister, during the Christmas holidays,
Mm-hmm.
and it was literally the day after Christmas, and she was like, "Oh, our house is already
Taking it down.
yeah, we've already
Yes.
taken down the Christmas tree," and
Yes.
she goes, "Oh, I'm just so burnt out by Christmas already." And she actually said, like, we rushed through the Christmas
Mm-hmm.
season. I said, "Man, we're just getting started."
Yes. Yes. The
She's like,
12
"Oh,
days just began.
what do you mean?" So of course I was able to tell her about our
Yeah.
tradition of, really enjoying and
Mm-hmm.
appreciating Advent and really setting our hearts
Mm-hmm.
to hope and peace and joy and love.
Mm-hmm.
And then we celebrate 12 days of Christmas and
Mm-hmm.
continue to follow along. And honestly, I'm a convert myself.
Yeah.
And one of the things that drew me to the Catholic faith was actually the whole concept of the church following along, like the story of God
Mm-hmm.
and
Yes.
going to mass. And it would be just I felt like I was immersed in living the scriptures
Mm-hmm.
every time I went to mass.
Yes, they're ordered perfectly. We don't have to do that part.
Yeah, especially how the readings line up with one
Mm-hmm.
another. And of course, yes, the seasons of the church. It's really made a difference, in not only your house, but I feel like it makes a difference when you have an opportunity to really truly follow along with the
Mm-hmm.
seasons. Because what do seasons bring?
Mm-hmm.
Joy,
Yep.
peace,
Mm-hmm.
all of these things.
Order is just like the biggest thing. When a big family, you have to have order,
Don't we
so
all
we
want
don't get
order?
overstimulated and all the things, but everything just makes sense.
Yeah.
You know,
And how many kids do you have, Lindsay?
we have 4 on earth, 1 saint in heaven, 1 cooking.
And speaking of saints, this is what we're kind of called to do, is raising
Mm-hmm.
saints. And,
The
you
saint,
know,
I think it's Sister Claire, sainthood or nothing.
yeah,
That's the only option.
that's right.
You know.
So you talked about having different traditions in your home. Obviously, we're going to talk about living liturgically. We're going to go through the seasons.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious though. You mentioned that you have, outside of the birthdays, your kids have special days, and so tell me a little bit about those.
Yeah.
And what are, in general, your family's favorite traditions to do at home?
Yeah, I think the kids have to love it because we're weaving the faith. We're weaving the faith into their entire childhood. So it has to be harder than just not going to mass on Sunday if they're going to walk away as an adult. So ingraining these traditions that actually have meaning to them personally, I think, is super important in making that impact on their entire memory of living as a family together. So everybody has a baptismal day or baptismal anniversary of when the day they were baptized, which is written on their baptismal candle if it's hard to forget, or excuse me, hard to remember. So they get their candle lit every baptismal day yearly, and they get to pick dinner or dessert, something special about the day. And I have a special plate that I made in just like a pottery place that says it's your special day, so it can apply for all of them. So baptismal day, birthday, and then their own namesake day. So the saint that we name them after, whether it's the first name, the middle name. And if you didn't, then you can pick one for them because we're their parents, and we can assign that until they choose their own at confirmation. So all of those days, which is also a good starting point if you're just starting from scratch, because those days are going to be built into your family no matter what. So
That's a good point.
the saint of their name, their baptismal, and their birthday. 3 special days for every kid every year.
What a great way to start. Like you said,
Yeah.
like foundationally sound. By the way, that's like the first thing that my family adopted
Yeah.
as, this, I think we were introduced to you and your family as I was going through RCIA,
Mhm.
which is now OCIA. And, of course, there's so much being kind of just given to you.
It's overwhelming at first.
Overwhelming.
It really is. Because
Right.
it's a whole year.
Yeah.
Like whole year is thrown at you, and you really have to pick and customize it to your own family because that's why it's meaningful.
Yeah.
You have to, it's weaving the faith of your family.
That's right.
You know?
But, even starting with these fundamentals, right? I mean, first of all, let's talk about the fact that you're celebrating the baptism anniversary, which is amazing because that's the sacrament of initiation.
Mhm.
Like that is where
That's
we
their
were
start.
sealed.
Yeah.
Our names are written in the book of life in
Mhm.
the scriptures, right? Revelation talks
That's when
about
we're
the
children
mark.
of God. Yeah.
Yes, we become children of God at that moment.
Yeah.
And at least in our home, our children through these baptismal anniversaries, we light their candle, we all recite our baptismal vows, we have the holy water, and it's just an amazing reminder to all of us of who we belong to. In addition, just as parents, the reminder that we have to continue that call of
Yes.
raising saints.
Yes.
But the most fun, right, is having the namesake. So what saint we're named after, that's personally become my favorite because it's, the meal we get to choose, the kids get to have fun with what we're eating that night, and they get to learn
Hot
about the
dogs
saint.
and cupcakes, like whatever they want, and that's super just childhood loving to them.
And they also grow this appreciation for getting to know the saint.
Their name.
They get to learn a little bit about this hero. They learn about the lives of the saints in general, even if it's not theirs, when it's their sibling or their mom or dad. Like we have an opportunity now to really dive into the lives of the saint.
Yes.
And every year we can kind of dive deeper into the life of the saint. And I think that's just looking at the value. I mean, who wouldn't want to do that? It's fantastic.
Well, and that's why we need the saints. I know other faiths think that it's silly that we think about anybody but Jesus. But the saints give us examples of different ways of living that still led to God.
That's right.
And we need that as lay people. We need those different examples to be inspired by. It's not, we can't be in the church on our knees 24/7. We have to serve our family first. That's our vocation.
That's right.
And all these saints are just different inspiring examples of how we can do that, and that it can be in different ways as long as we're seeking holiness.
That's right.
And so
And
the children have saints at the feet of Jesus. Why would we not ask everybody we can to pray for us? We
that's right.
need, every single one of us needs it
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely
in
right.
this world today. I mean,
No kidding.
what our children are being raised in. I mean, it's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
They need these prayers. They need these prayers.
And the examples
Yes.
and the lives of the heroes that have gone before us. So,
Yes.
well, let's talk about Advent and Christmas traditions. We'll start with Advent and Christmas, and then we're going to get into Lent and Easter,
Okay.
and then we'll end with just really ordinary time and feast day celebrations. So,
Sure.
of course, let's start with Advent
Yeah.
Christmas tradition.
Start
so
of the year, start of the liturgical
the
year.
start of the calendar
Yep.
year. Yeah, let's talk with that. Let's start with that and talk about that. So, first of all, let's talk about some of your favorite traditions that you
Okay.
do, and then maybe you could provide some guidance on preparing a house for Advent, for Christmas.
Sure.
And of course, preface that, this is, take everything here and pray about what applies to your home.
Yes,
And,
customize it to your family.
yeah, and
That's what's
start somewhere.
beautiful. Yes, start somewhere and make it your own.
Yes.
So Advent, probably the most commonly known one is the Advent wreath, the 4 candles of the Advent weeks, 3 purple, 1 pink. So start with the wreath. If you don't have anything else, start with the wreath. They already have themes for each Sunday, and that's what you can pray about each week: peace, hope, love, joy, in different order. So that's the simplest one to start with. A lot of families do a Jesse tree, which is going through salvation history in the order in the Bible, snippets of scripture every day. We used to do the Jesse tree. I still think it's a wonderful thing. We were introduced to the Advent blocks in the last few years. That's just a little more summarizing and connects the dots for you. So we've just really enjoyed the Advent blocks, and it's literal blocks that the kids turn one every single day when we do our bedtime prayers, and includes that scripture story. But they just do a really good job of connecting the dots for you, which is a little helpful.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
So those two are both super related to each other. And then Straw for Jesus is one of my favorites. There's an equivalent one in Lent, which we'll talk about with Lent. But the Straw for Jesus is have a manger. We started with a shoebox, had the kids just color paper brown and taped it to it. Got pine straw from outside. You can use yarn, whatever's around the house. And there's a jar of straw next to this manger. And every good deed that you see them do, you earned a piece of straw. And they're preparing the manger so it can be soft for Jesus. When it's Christmas time, Christmas Eve, we'll sing away in the manger and put the baby Jesus in the manger. And I think that's another physical, tangible thing the kids can do, that it's a piece of straw and they care about it.
You're not kidding. Our kids will fight over doing good deeds now because they want to put straw in the manger.
And shouldn't that be a goal?
Yes.
I'm going to fight you to do the better thing.
Yeah. Or the cute thing is, at the end of the day, or when they do a good deed, hey, Dad, I just want to let you know, like, I just helped my sister go to the bathroom, or I just helped her wash her hands. And I'm like, oh, that's great. And they're waiting for it, you know? So you have to really just be careful.
You do, because then when they're bragging,
I know.
It's like you're defeating
the purpose.
It's hard.
Here.
It's hard. You got to balance it. You do.
But it also gives you, as a parent, an opportunity to recognize the good things your children do. Because, look, as a parent, it's really hard to just focus on the bad things they do all day and try to rebuke and correct them. Right? So, at least for me, not only has it brought our household together, and really it was a cute way of honoring Jesus, but it has given me the opportunity to recognize the things that my children do that are good.
Yes, they need the words of praise. We all do.
Yes, we all need affirmation.
Especially, but that's when you notice it more.
That's right.
And
going back to the Advent wreath is, for us, we've loved that tradition too, because at dinner time we'll light the candles before dinner, and it becomes it's the centerpiece of our dinner table. And it's just a wonderful thing that we've come around, and even during the antiphons, being able to sing those antiphons at the dinner table.
They're beautiful.
They are.
We instituted in the last, and they kind of develop, your traditions develop through the years. So later, after we were already doing the Advent wreath, but then we would start dinner with the lights off, and that's when we light the matches, and that's when we're teaching the oldest a safe way to light matches in a controlled environment too, singing "O Come, O Come, Emmanuel" every single night. And so you build on the traditions through the years too, and you think of your own things that no one's ever thought of, and that's beautiful.
And that's the Holy Spirit guiding the family.
Yeah.
And if you're watching this and you're starting the Advent wreath, don't feel bad if your small child dips his finger into the hot wax of the candle.
It's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen.
Yep.
We've had that happen plenty of
Good
times.
lessons. Good lessons. Absolutely.
So moving on then, let's talk a little bit about, again, what would you say is like the so what, right? As we talk about living liturgically and you talk about Advent and Christmas, what's the ultimate kind of goal for you and your household in doing some of these beautiful traditions? Like, what's the purpose at the end of the day of all
Advent
this?
itself or the whole thing?
Yeah, the whole thing, just all of the stuff during Advent, Christmas.
Advent itself is specifically making it a separate season. That's my goal with Advent. It's a different season that the church designed to prepare for Christmas, but we're not there yet. We're not celebrating yet. That's when we're doing our corporal works of mercy. That's when we're being generous. That's when we're thinking of what we would like and doing it for someone else. And that's the anticipation part because we're serving others to then feast, to then celebrate.
Mm,
But you can't get to the celebrating and the feasting until you've prepared.
that's really good. We
We
want instant gratification, though. I mean, we
do.
want the
Yeah.
Amazon delivery
Well,
tomorrow.
that's why people put the tree up the day after Thanksgiving or even before because they want the joy now.
Yeah,
And that's enviable.
yeah,
But we can't get it immediately.
yeah.
And that was the biggest thing I had to learn. The biggest thing change of all was we're not celebrating Christmas. We're not putting the decorations up right after Thanksgiving. We're not doing all these things until at least God at Sunday. We can do wintry things,
Mhm.
make snowflakes, paper chains, bring in pine branches, that kind of thing. But it's not Christmas stuff. Not until at least God at Sunday when the joyful week has come and we can start to prepare just so we're not stressed the day before Christmas putting everything up.
True.
You have to balance it with your own family.
In addition to the Advent Christmas traditions, there are also a slew of feast days,
Many.
solemnities.
Mhm.
Let's talk about some of those and some of your favorite ones.
Sure. So our favorites are St. Nicholas, December 6th. It's the feast of St. Nicholas himself, which is kind of funny for people because then Christmas is St. Nicholas as well. But St. Nicholas's own day, the day of his death, is December 6th. So the tradition of putting shoes out at the fireplace or the door, wherever you want to do it, or stocking out. It doesn't matter which way to do it. And they're all associated with things that he did throughout his life and just his love of children. So that's a super fun day we do every year. Super simple. Put a shoe out, and then things happen.
The kids wake up and see things in their shoe.
Kids wake up.
I can tell you that my children love that feast day
Mhm.
during Advent. Yeah,
You guys do stockings, I think.
we do shoes.
Oh, you do shoes? Okay.
Yeah, they pick out more than just fun things. There's probably some spiders and cockroaches in the morning, but I think they can look past the bugs and they get excited.
Yes. And then other December feast days throughout Advent, Immaculate Conception.
Oh, it's a good one.
Yes, and that is a solemnity, which the solemnity, if you don't know, is the highest of all feast days. So it is a day of mandatory celebration. So no matter what season it falls in, you feast on that day.
That's right.
And you go to mass. It's the first thing you do. That's the ultimate feast, right? And that's a Mary day. So we wear blue, go to mass. You can wear blue or have blue foods or white foods at dinner and have a little Mary procession around the yard. Find the Mary statues in your house. Every Catholic home has some. Could be blocks, could be anything, books. Carry them on your head, sing a Hail Mary,
Yeah.
Very simple. And then what's another December one? St. Lucy, Feast of St. Lucy, December 13th. She was a child martyr.
It's my birthday, by the way.
Is that? Oh, that's a good birthday.
It's a good birthday.
That's a really good birthday.
Yeah, somebody
She
on my
was-
YouTube channel actually pointed that out to me and said, "Oh, you share the feast day of St. Lucy, and she represents the light, and in a way, you are bringing the light of Christ into
That's
the world on YouTube." And I was like, "You just made my birthday."
Oh, yes,
How
that's a
beautiful.
special day.
Yeah,
Super special day. The traditional food is lassiker. I can't say it. American version is cinnamon rolls,
love
which
that.
everyone loves. But there's also traditional recipes, which are super fun. But she was famous for having her eyes plucked out, and then Saint Michael then gave her eyes back to her. But she's always depicted holding her eyes as a memory of that. But she stood up, I think, to an emperor or Roman
Yeah.
emperor, and she was very, very brave, and she was a child. So big inspiration. And the Swedes have a beautiful tradition of having the girl wear white dress and a red sash and flaming candles on her head to serve the food to everybody.
We
since it
actually
was a
did that
girl.
for the first
Did
time
you
this
do
year,
it?
and
It's so
our
fun.
oldest daughter, Sophia, oh my gosh, she played that
I
part
bet.
so well and
I
just
bet.
took it to heart. And we did make her come out blindfold to serve. I'm just kidding.
Oh
Just
man.
kidding. Just representing the plucking
That
of the
is
eyes.
that's testing. That's testing.
No, no, but I think at first they were a little creeped out by the fact that her eyes,
It's
were
weird.
being held. It's weird, but
There are
again, the
tons of
kids,
weird saint stories though.
yeah, but it
And
doesn't impact them in a
no,
negative way.
no, and that's something too that I think is important to tell them the truth
Yeah,
about what people went through for their love of
because they
Jesus.
loved Jesus that
Because
much.
every single time. That's the
Yeah,
answer to all the saints' martyrdom and everything they did because
yeah,
they loved Jesus. Why were they persecuted? Because they loved Jesus,
that's right.
you know?
Yeah.
So those are the big December ones we have. There's others, but those are the big ones.
Okay, Lindsay, so let's move on and talk about Lent and Easter practices. So first, insights on observing Lent and Easter, preparing for Easter within the family life, and then what are some suggestions for engaging children in the significance of Lent and Easter traditions? This is kind of like the long-suffering
Hmm.
one of all of them, if I'm not
Hmm.
mistaken. Like this is the hard one.
Lent, yes. Well, Advent is the little Lent, so it's the short suffering. But Lent is the long one, 40 days plus Sundays. You're gonna make family commitments together. I have found it very helpful to have the kids write them down. We're gonna write them down on a whole family sheet of paper, which I'm sure I got from other mom bloggers who talk about how they do it. So each name and what they're giving up and what they're going to do extra during Lent, which I think is really important. We didn't do that growing up. We did the give up. We didn't do the do extra.
Yeah.
And I think that is helpful.
Yeah.
Because it's not just taking away.
Yeah.
So then we post it so everyone can see something we do as a family, something we're doing individually, and what the goals are. So it's a reminder in the kitchen, somewhere very central. And then tangible sacrifice beans. So the straw for Jesus was the Advent one, and Lent is sacrifice beans, literally a jar of dried beans with an empty jar next to it. And whenever you see them do a good deed, you got a bean, which then turns into jelly beans during Easter.
That's right. Put a bean in the jar.
Mm-hmm.
They love
You
that.
want more. You want more. And then, so that's, again, something tangible they can do. Something else fun that we don't do every year, but when I remember we can do it, is to bury the Alleluia. So Alleluia is a word of praise God. And that's not a word we say during Lent because, again, we're sacrificing and we're living in the desert per se, spiritually, and we're giving up a beautiful word. So something tangible is, you can write it on a piece of paper, have them color it. Some people have cool wooden versions that say Alleluia, and you put it in a bag or a box, bury it in the yard. So you're saying goodbye to it. Kids need something physical to see.
Yeah.
And then Easter morning, they get to dig it up.
Not to mention, you get to sing that once again for the
Yes.
first time in Mass, which is my favorite thing.
It's a beautiful moment in Mass.
It
Yes. The solemnities, when the high altar candles are lit and all the extra oomph, that just makes it so beautiful.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Makes you really appreciate like what we're celebrating. I think you said
Mhm.
it perfectly by, again, these living liturgically at home rather than just experiencing these moments within the like setting of going to Mass.
Mhm.
It really does just amplify the whole spiritual journey and helps at least me and my family really truly appreciate what we're celebrating. And
Mhm.
here's the thing, right? Like technically, right, a lot of Christians don't have to do these things, right?
Mhm.
It's it's done, it's finished, and they go on living life just pure prosperity.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of prosperity about what we believe, the gospel of Jesus Christ. But
Mhm.
doing these things is, to me, probably as equally important of just it's equally important than just remembering the good, like setting
You cannot have the resurrection without the crucifixion.
right.
Yep.
And there's just something about really setting the stage in your spiritual life
Mm-hmm.
to really fully prepare yourself for what we call the fullness of our faith.
Mm-hmm. And that's another thing as parents too. It's so easy to get swept up in the busy, in the schedule,
Yeah.
and all these daily things. But when you have something at the dinner table to come back to together, when you have the bedtime prayers that have to do with that feast day or whatever it is,
Yeah.
or the season, that's what brings you together. That's when the domestic church is alive, because it's not just Sundays.
Yeah. We're supposed to live like this every day.
Every day.
Well, and going back to Lent, I'll just say one of my favorite ones that we've adapted as a family has been the living stations. And we set the living stations up around our pool deck.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll actually process around, and each of the children will take turns.
Yeah.
And I remember when my wife first proposed this as a family, I was thinking like, you are crazy, because the kids,
not gonna work.
That's not going to work. And over time, it became like a really, truly just beautiful event that all of the kids took seriously and really got into.
Yeah, were you able to do it every Friday?
Yeah, we did every
That's awesome.
Friday, and the fish fries, we would kind of start with that and then
Yeah.
end with the fish fry, which
Mhm.
was just a great sense of community.
Mhm. At
I
your local
at our
parish.
local
Yeah.
parish. I mean, the fish fries can be a little bit of a controversy maybe for some parishes, but for ours, it really is a great event that brings
Mhm.
the parish community together. And this is kind of the next part about like the suffering. You're uniting your suffering with others
Mhm.
within your congregation, your
Mhm.
parish, and I think that's really the only way to get through these long like seasons of you know kind of temporary suffering where we're setting our hearts,
We're doing it
preparing
together.
it. Yeah, we're doing it
Mhm.
together, and if you're not doing this together,
Yeah.
it can just feel like a pointless tradition.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole point of parish communities is you are going through whatever you're going through together at the same time.
Yeah,
And that even non-Catholic faiths talk about the importance of community because they don't have to go to mass. That's not part of their church
there's no
tradition. There's
obligations.
no
Yeah,
obligations, but even most of them talk about the importance of having a community to keep you accountable, to keep you going together,
that's
learn
right.
together. So I
That's right.
mean, we're made for community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've talked about some really great stuff for Lent. What about Easter? I mean, this is like the high note
Oh,
now.
Easter. Easter is the most important season of the year, arguably. So we've finished Lent through Holy Week. Holy Week is a big week. Palm Sunday, Spy Wednesday, Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday, and it's not Easter until Easter Sunday. And I think there's been so many, I have noticed, I don't know about you, Easter egg hunts on Holy Saturday. That's been something we purposely avoid because it's just not Easter yet. And the Holy Saturday we spend getting the everything ready for Easter. So I'm getting food ready. They're starting to put decorations out so it can be ready to go. That's when we can say Alleluia again. That's when all of these joyous things come out that arguably the decorations of Lent are dry and desert looking,
Yeah.
and that's boring, and
Yeah.
it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So then colorful, bright, fun, that's what happens Easter. And the jelly beans, the sacrifice beans are now jelly beans. And I keep them out just during the octave. I can't do the whole 50 days,
Too much
which
sugar.
is too much sugar. And so when they do good deeds, that's when they earn a jelly bean every time. So
Sure.
it develops into that because it's already a habit at that point.
You put your
You did
blinders on a
something
little bit
good.
more though now when the jelly beans are out. Like maybe not noticing as much of the good deeds.
No, not during the octave. I'll give it to them during the octave because that's an 8-day solemnity. That is feasting central. So yeah, super joyous. The Easter Mass is just so exciting. All the big songs come out, the chorus comes out,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Well, I mean, I was confirmed on Easter, the vigil, and I will
Yeah,
never
yeah.
forget how wonderful
hmm
that mass was. And just,
Vigil specifically
oh, it
is
was
beautiful.
amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know some people that take all their kids to Vigil every single year, and
hmm
props to them because it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Super beautiful.
Yeah. Let them fall asleep in the pew.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's like,
It's fine. But also they're captivated by the darkness and then the candles and then
yes.
all the things and then there's a bang, like
Yeah. It's incredible.
it's super fun.
And so again, I use this analogy of that's the feeling that's what it feels like in the home when we're living
Mhm.
liturgically at home
Yeah.
in any of these seasons. It's
Yeah.
like when you get to the climax of the end of those seasons,
Mhm.
there is this just amazing emotional connection
Yes.
to what we're doing.
Yes. Absolutely. And I think it's Easter specifically is super easy thing to point out. It's longer than Lent.
Yeah,
It's 50 days. It's not 40 days. And so because it's Lent is important, Easter is the ultimate what you're working for, and that's when you get to enjoy it. And you
yeah,
get to enjoy it longer than you suffer,
that's
which
right.
is heaven,
That's
you
right.
know?
What a great connection.
Yeah.
And of course, we understand Lent as the time to, abstain. We understand Lent as the time for almsgiving. We
Mhm.
understand that Lent is a time for, fasting and,
Mhm.
and really sacrificing.
Mhm.
But again, when you understand the reason
Mhm.
for that season, which is setting your heart and preparing yourself for the end, the climax of what it represents,
Mhm.
again, some of my favorite moments of that season is even just like, going to mass on, Holy Thursday or Good Friday and all of the different liturgy that we see,
Mhm.
going up and kissing the cross and
Mhm.
just
which are things kids can do. You know, they
Yes,
can't do all could do communion
that's right.
receive, but they can get their ashes. They can kiss the feet of Jesus. And that's wonderful participatory things that they get
That's
to
right.
do, that they need these tangible things. We need seasons because that is so nature has seasons. The earth has natural seasons because we would get bored if everything were the same.
That's right.
That's just our nature.
Yeah.
And so I know it seems silly for non-Catholics to see us go through this charade every year of doing the same things that have already happened. They're done, you know. But we need the reminder every single year. And
Yeah.
something different happens within our heart every single year. Different
Absolutely.
experiences are going on that we're making connections with. And praise God, we believe in sacrificial love and redemptive suffering because it's not in vain.
That's right.
God turns it and makes it good if we ask him to,
Amen.
you know.
All right. So, well, thank you for sharing some of those amazing practices for
Yeah.
Lent and Easter. Let's conclude by talking about ordinary time, hence the name of our podcast here, and the feast, just general feast day celebrations. Let's talk about ordinary time. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe you can help my listeners and viewers really appreciate more of the whole idea of podcast. What is ordinary time?
Goodness gracious, I wish it were not called ordinary time because it's extraordinary. That's when we're learning, that's when the scriptures go through the life of Jesus, not his beginning and not his end, but the middle part. And so I it's really more extraordinary. And so then because you're not having the seasons of very specific seasons of Advent and Lent, you're filling it with the other feast days of the saints. And there's a million and they're wonderful. And so you really just have to pick the ones that are important to you guys. So there's 2 seasons of ordinary time. The first one is right after Christmas, and it's barely a month because Lent starts. But there's St. Bridget, there's St. Valentine, who's not technically on the calendar anymore, but he's still the patron of marriage. And there's Saints Perpetua and Felicity, who's one
Yeah.
of my child's namesakes. And then Ordinary Time 2 comes after Easter, after Pentecost. And there's a million in there. There's Corpus Christi, where you'll do a walk around following the monstrance of Jesus, typically at parishes, a traditional thing, another communal thing to do. The Sacred Heart of Jesus always falls in June. That's always on a Friday, which is a solemnity, which always means Meat Friday. So you make a big deal about meat that day. Mother's Day and Father's Day I do include in my liturgical year, even though that's a secular day technically, but that's when we call or send something to our children's godfathers and godmothers.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
really very, very
Yeah.
neat. Yeah.
Because you have to keep the connection.
That's
You
right.
know, it's not just one time.
It's not just some other checkbox, right?
No. Yeah. Yeah. So that's when you're praying for them as well, saying, thank you for praying for me, because they're all doing that. Got St. Thomas More. We'll make s'mores. St. Thomas More. So you have to make it fun. St. Mary Magdalene, she has the legend of the egg where she came to the emperor to tell him about the resurrection of Jesus. She had a basket of stuff. He said, no more could that have happened if then your eggs would turn red, and they turned red. So that we can dye eggs red or color a coloring page of her with red eggs, you know, any little thing. Saints Anne and Joachim is over the summer as well, who are Jesus's grandparents. So that's our grandparents' day. So we try to have grandparents over, send them a special card or something on that
That's
day.
awesome.
Yeah. The Assumption of Mary, which is our parish's namesake. So there's usually a thing there for that. Another Mary Day, lots of blue, lots of white. Feast of St. Augustine, our diocesan namesake, is a fun one to do. You either go to the beach for that legend of him walking along the beach with the child learning about the Trinity, or visit the city of St. Augustine. We're very lucky to have
That's right.
that city right there, and it's beautiful and historic, and there's beautiful churches there. There's the Shrine of Our Lady of the Leche and awesome things that you can take advantage of that aren't just in the house, but you're still doing something as a family.
That's right.
There's Mary's birthday in September, so literally make a birthday cake for our mother, which is September 8th, which would be 9 months after Immaculate Conception.
Mm-hmm.
Connecting the dots on things.
Wait, that's how long it takes to birth a child, right?
It does. It does.
Again,
Yeah.
it's
But
all
it's
so
funny
finely
because,
tuned, you know?
but then you really do connect the dots because you're like, oh, there was organization put into this. Like
That's right.
somebody made this make sense.
Yeah.
You know? Padre Pio, he said, pray, hope, and don't worry. So we make donuts, pray, hope, and donut worry. And
not to mention the
we make
hole.
it funny. Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
if the kids connect
That's
that
true.
yet. She's got the hole in
We
the hand.
haven't talked about
There
that
you go.
actually, but that's wonderful. That's the thing. Turn it into your own.
Yeah.
Michaelmas is a really fun one. I don't know if you guys do Michaelmas yet. It's the Feast of St. Michael and all the archangels. So then something with blackberries, because the legend is that when St. Michael finally cast Lucifer out of heaven, he landed in a blackberry bush and thorns and spat on it. And, we're remembering our victory over him in those moments. Feast of the Guardian Angels, angel food cake.
Who doesn't love angel food cake?
No, it's delicious. Anything like that. Our Lady of the Rosary is a really fun one because not only do you remind yourself we have to pray the rosary today, but you make it an edible rosary. And you put the beads, you make one on the table for each kid, and it can be Cheerios, it can be chocolate chips, it can be any marshmallows, and they get to eat as they pray, and they think it's amazing.
See, you're making this living liturgically thing sound like super fun.
It's so fun, and it gives you direction.
That's right.
Direction for the fun. You always want to think of new things to do with your kids, and if it's going to bring you closer to God, of course we're going to try to do that.
That's right.
And it really, so we're not having to use as much of our creative mind because the church has already done it for us.
That's right.
And there's so many resources also. I don't know if you want me to list them now
Yeah,
or later.
what are some, so that's a good segue. So what are some of the resources? Well, first and foremost, right? Like, I feel like anyone watching this video, just pray about, where the Lord's leading you and how to really improve living liturgically at home, right? I mean, starting there. And I think, but there are some tangible resources. There's some things that you have discovered over your life. There's things that you've created on your own. Where's a good place for someone to start with this whole living liturgically at home?
My two staples are the blogs Catholic All Year by Kendra Tierney and Catholic Icing by a sweet girl named Lacey. And they have already organized everything into how they've turned it into things for their children. And so it's super helpful to just start with something that's already existing when you're starting from scratch.
Yeah.
So their websites are already organized by the season, by the feast day. Very, very helpful. Printables. I mean, just super simple, easy things to pick up on. Catholic Icing is the one that talks about weaving the faith into their entire childhood. In Catholic All Year, she has 10 children. So she's got it down how they do things. And it's just beautiful. So those are my two favorite staples, but there's a ton online. There's catholicmom.com. There's Catholic Cuisine, which are specifically recipes you can use for different feast days, which is just fantastic. So there's tons of people that have done the hard work of making it organized. So we just have to pick and choose what we're going to customize for our own family.
Love it.
And then you can put it into your own cookbooks to pass down to your children. I made a binder of the Weaving the Faith from Catholic Icing, which they have a resource to make an entire binder for your own family.
It's amazing.
Which I told my husband, I don't need to use it generally because I have it pretty organized on our regular calendar now. But I told my husband, if anything ever happens to me, this is your binder.
This is the manual.
This is how we're going to continue after I'm gone. Because this is not going anywhere. This is our livelihood now.
Well, you've really owned it. And I think, again, I really, truly hope that those that are listening in on today's episode or watching this episode, I hope that, you guys are equally as excited about implementing at least one or two of these things within each season. I think, look, the church invites us to really participate in this fullness of the faith, right? I mean, this is a perfect invitation for us to really experience the fullness of our faith and to draw and grow closer to our Lord. And I think, again, meeting you and your family and my wife really taking the inspiration into our home, I'll be honest, at first I was a little bit like,
it's weird at first.
It's a little weird. I was
It's
like, this is a little intense, but I would tell you it's become something that I have really come to appreciate the most about what we do. And I have to give my wife all of the credit because with her being the spearhead of this, like it's just amazing. I mean, I absolutely love and admire what my wife has done for us as a family. And
it becomes foundational.
It is. And, especially on those days, where just things aren't great,
nothing feels special.
Yeah. These liturgical kind of themes really kind of re-spark your life.
Yeah.
And they always kind of occur at the right time and the right
Yeah.
moments. And
And the kids remember what the traditions were sometimes better than we do. Like,
yeah.
oh, didn't we do this? Aren't we supposed to have waffles this day? Yes. That's what we're having for breakfast. You already figured it out for me, and so it seems overwhelming at first. It seems hard at first. It becomes easy,
That's right.
you know?
And as a result, we become just so much more in tune to just this amazing living church that
Yes.
the Lord's given us.
Yes, we are the domestic church.
Yeah.
And the church already, like I said before, the church did the hard work for us.
Mhm.
But when we follow that, that's when we're living the faith.
That's right. Well, Lindsay, thank you so much for joining me for this episode on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was such a pleasure. And thank you guys for watching, for listening, wherever you tune in for the podcast. If you've liked this episode, please do me a favor, like this, share this episode with someone you know. There's got to be someone you know that would benefit from some of this conversation that we've had. And
Something
out of here. Hopefully. And I believe it. And listen, thank you so much for tuning in to Ordinary Time Catholic Podcast. I really look forward to having you for the next episode. And once again, Lindsay, thank you for joining me.